Yeah, yeah. Coming up on Mental Health Marty, we got Dr. Jackey live in our studio tonight, and he is cutting up, but we are keeping the dream alive as we reflect on MLK Day. Stay tuned. What's going on, everyone? It's Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist, coming to you live and always in living color in Southern California, where it never rains. The rain has stopped, and we are so glad. We are glad to have Dr. Jackey in the office today. Listen, we've been doing a lot of working, y'all, and we are so glad to have Dr. Jackey in the studio today, guys. And we are continuing our discussion from last week. Last week, you were in the Bay Area at home, and do not pull up Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat is not in this.
This segment is sponsored by Pete.
This segment is not sponsored by Pete the Cat.
To love.
Listen, y'all, we're just having a good time today. Tony, say hi real quick. Tony is in here. Yes. There she goes. Tony Baloney. Yes. We are just having a great time in celebrating King Day. Yesterday, we had a beautiful time celebrating King Day in San Bernardino. And this was our first time in 3 years that we were able to gather together as a people to celebrate the amazing legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. And what I want to talk to you today about, Dr. Jackey, as we do this today, we're going to be off kilter today because Daryl, the Mac in the back, is blowing up my ear, telling me to stay on key. But Daryl, I'm going to throw you a wrench today. We're just going to have fun talking about the importance of Dr. King. Yes, we can't do the disclaimer as he's talking in my ear. So let's do the disclaimer, Daryl. So the disclaimer today is this. Listen, the Mental Health Matters with Marty show is designed to be a psychoeducational show. And what do I mean by that? We are here to be a supplement and a support to your mental health and wellness. We are not a substitute for you seeing your therapist, your psychiatrist, your psychologist, your pastor, your life coach, or anything else like that. But we are meant to be a part of your treatment plan to your mental health, wellness, and journey on your mental health success. So if you're experiencing any type of mental health crises, please dial 911, go to your nearest urgent care, or dial the new mental health helpline at 988. That's what we do. Thank you, Daryl, for reminding. Now, how do we see your comments? Now, if you're watching us on any other segment outside of YouTube, we want you to jump over to our YouTube, Mental Health Marty, on the YouTube page, and then subscribe and hit that thumbs up button so that you know when we have a show. And when you hear that button, that lets you know what we do and how we are doing. So again, if you're listening, let us know. Jeff, what's going on? Listen, we're having a great day today, and we have been working like some Hebrews without straw. Well, that's how it happens. And whenever
pushing it up the pyramid today, you had me pushing it up the pyramid.
Listen, I'm so glad to have, my brothers here, my brother, Dr. Jackey, here with us live in the studio tonight. And we're so grateful. But Dr. Jackey.
Yes, sir.
Again, what does, it's King Weekend. What does Dr. King and what he has meant with sharing the vision and the legacy of his dream? What does that mean for you?
It means so much to me. On a personal connection, Dr. King was my fraternity brother because he was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But as I've become a father now, just having the opportunity to share with my children the significance of who Dr. Martin Luther King was, his fight for equality, his fight for justice, his fight for civil rights, and I was explaining to my 8-year-old yesterday, because she was really trying to understand, well, why did they kill him? And the simple response that I gave was that he was someone who was known as a drum major for justice.
Yeah, that's good.
He wanted people to be treated equally.
Right? Yes.
And so she has a little friend, and one of her friends' names is Allison. And I said, one of the things that Dr. King wanted was he wanted you and Allison to be able to go to school together.
Yes.
And you be treated the same way Allison would be treated. Yes. And not based on the color of your skin, but the type of person that you are, meaning just being a good person. And so for me, what Dr. King really represents is that advocate who sacrificed his life so that I, as a Black man, can sit where it is that I sit, to operate in the spaces that I'm able to operate in, because he gave his life and sacrifice for me being able to be in these spaces.
Yes, but you're absolutely right. And I love that finally, I think we talked about it in our school systems, but we're actually digging deeper. And looking past just the civil rights aspect, because I think his freedom and his legacy, especially in our field, in what we do with mental health and just bringing the awareness about in our community, and really to helping to erase the stigma and the negative thought patterns behind us that has always been presented rather. How do you feel that even his legacy and what we do in our profession, he has really been a trailblazer in how we even approach mental health in such a way that we do in this 21st century?
I think that, you can't talk about Martin Luther King and not talk about the brilliance.
Yes.
He was an amazing orator.
Yes.
He was graduated from Morehouse, College, at a very, very young age.
Yes.
You can't talk about Dr. Martin Luther King and not mention Coretta Scott King, who was the woman behind, or what I like to call the first lady of the civil rights, movement.
Yes.
When I think about him in the context of mental health, I think about, this was a man who in public we saw as this courageous orator.
Yes.
This individual who was,
that's good.
But what we don't see is behind the closed doors, just the psychological torment that he struggled with. Because we have our public face.
Yes. And then we have
those silent struggles.
Yes. That's good, Jackey. That's good, Dr. Jackey. Talk about even, what I think we don't really talk a lot about is a lot of the PTSD that his children and Coretta Scott King faced, because just the death and although she was not there when he died, but just the effects of his death. Even talk about the death threats and what that, and we oftentimes don't talk about the mental health of Dr. King and his family and living through, and how do we as leaders push through PTSD and the trauma and the compact trauma that comes with such a leader as Dr. King, as Malcolm X, as some of these other ones that we rear high in our community, but the challenges that their families had to face.
I mean, can you imagine? We're talking about a time where you were living with constant death.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Not because you committed a crime, not because you were out there doing, inappropriate things.
Right.
You wasn't living a reckless life.
Right.
But you were basically lending your voice and saying, this isn't right. And so I'm going to be a voice, and I'm going to advocate for something larger than me.
Yes.
So what I begin to think about when we talk about PTSD, which is the post-traumatic stress disorder, is just the reoccurring thoughts on both the part of Dr. King, even Malcolm X,
yes,
Medgar Evers,
yes,
right?
Yes.
When we begin to talk about death threats,
yes.
When we think about even Rosa Parks,
yes,
you know, when she sat on
that's
that
so
bus
good,
and she refused to give up her seat, in that moment, it was traumatic because she could have lost her life right then and there. So can you imagine? Because we oftentimes talk about PTSD from the perspective of the person who's lived through war.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But what about the individual who was living through a constant state of war?
Oh, that's good. That's good. And I don't think I think we overlook that a lot. And from a clinical perspective, not only did they, in you know, one of the things we say in cognitive behavior, CBT, is mind over mood.
Yes.
Where they did take the mind and also take the importance of making a difference in society over their own mental health and wellness.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine where you have to set and take your mind and place it somewhere else. And not that they ignored those things, because they had to still deal and wrestle with those things, but you allow the common good of mankind to supersede your own mental health challenges that you might have gone through.
So, you know, I'm going to tap onto that good Masters of Theology divinity that you hold. And it takes me back to the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so before we even go to the garden, let's talk about Martin, right?
Yes.
So during this particular period in time, the civil rights movement, we know, there was an alignment between the social component and the church.
Yeah, come on. I see where you're going. Right? Come on and talk to us.
And so
that's good.
I think just having the courage didn't necessarily come from the fact that he was Dr. King, but I really believe that it came from this solidified faith that they had down on the inside.
Yes.
Literally that they had a wholehearted, for God I live, for God I die.
Yes.
But I think about in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus, on the night that he was getting ready to be, the night before he was crucified.
Yeah, come on, talk to us.
The Bible says that he went into the garden to pray.
Yes.
And the word kind of escapes me, so this is where I need you to lean into it. But he prayed so hard that blood and sweat, hydro.
Ooh.
Yeah. You see that? You got listen.
But can we say this, that the agony was so great,
the
stress level was so great
that his body
began to so he had, can we say it this way, a physical reaction.
A physiological reaction.
Physiological reaction. Come on, we talking good now. This is $1,000 course right here.
You see that?
The physiological reaction to the traumatic experience that was anticipated.
That's right.
And yet he was able to have to stay. The prayer, if I can say it this way, was really a grounding technique. Yeah. It was to balance him out so that he is now not reacting out of emotions, my God, but from a knowing of who you are. That's why one of the first questions I always ask is, who are you? And when we understand who we are, and even understand the situation at hand, it causes us to make a more rational and intellectual decision about what we have to do, as opposed to an emotional. Therefore, we're not controlled by our emotions, but we're grounded in who we are and our purpose.
And it's intentional. It's intentionality.
Dr. Jackey, you talking good to me. Talk to me.
It's intentionality. And I think about the parallel between Dr. King and the life that he lived.
Yes.
And then the parallel of Christ.
Yes.
Right. So Christ, when he came to a place of resolve, and he understood, he was honest. The human part of him said, if it be your will, Father, let this cup
pass.
In other words,
if there's any other way,
listen, if we can get a pass.
Yes, let's get a pass.
If we can get a Section 8, if we can get somebody else to be on the waiting list.
Yes.
Right. He said, but nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. He had become resolved with, this is what the will of God was concerning my life. When we look at Martin Luther King,
that's good.
In several of his speeches, he would always refer to, I may not get there with you. There was a knowing that this man had, that because of the sacrifice and because of the course that his life was on, the reality was that the consequence of his actions, right, meaning fighting on behalf of others, put him in a place of danger. But he found resolve, I believe, and resoluteness, because here's the thing, he didn't move in fear.
That's good. That's good.
He moved in intentionality.
Yes.
You know.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, if we begin to take time to ground ourselves,
most definitely,
and we take time to understand who we are and reconcile with our purpose in life, then despite the trauma that we may have gone through as a people, despite the emotional back and forth that we might be experiencing right then and there, we then have the cognitive ability to make intentional choices that will help to guide us out of those situations and into our supporting and reaffirming our purpose, giving us emotional and intellectual freedom.
That's right. That's right. And I think that the other thing too is, you know, I was reflecting on yesterday because, you know, a lot of people look at the fact that, oh, yesterday was a federal holiday, you know, I don't have to go to work, you know, but around the United States, in Southern California and abroad, you know, it was a day of community service. It was a day of how do you give back, right? We often talk about keeping the dream, you know, alive.
Right,
The dream has not been realized in its totality.
Wow.
We have come a long way, but we still have a very long ways to go. And I'll say this is I thought about my grandparents who were born in 1926.
Right.
And they lived through being called the N-word.
Yes.
To being Negroes.
Yes.
To being colored.
Yes.
To being African-American, Black. They lived through Jim Crow.
Yes.
The Great Depression.
Yes.
And there was something that generation had through their trauma and their suffering beyond their faith in God was a stick-to-itiveness.
Yes.
It was the ability, we call that in clinical terms, they had resilience.
Yes, that's it.
They had that ability to bounce back. And so when I think about that generation in comparison to even
where we are today,
this is not a negative reflection on this generation today, but I don't necessarily see the same level of resilience.
Love it.
Right? Because we came together and organized.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we organized for a common purpose, not an individual purpose.
But can I say that speaks to the power of groups.
We didn't have groupthink.
Right.
I mean, it existed, but it wasn't to the magnitude. Yeah.
And even in the group, what happens is we are now empowered knowing that we're not alone.
That's right.
And that there's a community of us going through the same challenges, and that we were able to help each other heal. And we also instilled hope that tomorrow can be a brighter day.
That's right.
For us.
That's right. And there was also the responsibility of I have to be intentional on how I respond.
My God, yes.
You know, if we're going to go there, we have to talk about, you know, and this was a conversation I was having with my wife yesterday, you know, that we were reflecting about Dr. King, his generation, and we looked at even some of the pictures. These were a proud people.
Yes.
They were oppressed. They had lived through trauma. But even in living through their trauma, as we say in church, they didn't look like what they went through. There was this ability to be able to tap into an internal resilience that I believe first came through their faith in God. But it also came in having a clear purpose and understanding of who they were and whose they were.
Yes. We got a little child creeping in here tonight. She's our resident Tony Baloney. But I think you're absolutely right, because when we look at, so we'll say hello. Hi. The home studio, you never know who's going to pop in tonight, but this is about keeping the dream alive today. Right. And so I think it's very imperative that we get to
See the children's social worker on the inside of me.
Children's social worker. Yeah. We're developing our future social workers as we're changing right now the legacy.
To keep the dream alive.
Keep the dream alive. Yes, I love that. But I love it, and I don't want us to miss the fact that the intentionality. Daryl, can you put back up the comment that Jeff had said about the intentionality? He says that was a good nugget, not to move in fear, but with intentionality. Right. And I think even today, part of my goal and desire is that we as a people no longer move in fear when it comes to mental health diagnosis, right, or the possibility of a mental health diagnosis, or even the questioning of what a mental health diagnosis looked like. Right. Because just like they did not allow the circumstances, the situation to define their character or who they were, they didn't allow that to prevent them from doing the great work.
That's right.
My challenge to all of us is that we don't allow the possibility of overcoming what might be some mental health challenges, right, or the perceived mental health challenges keep us from doing the great work that we still know that is within us. Because I say it this way: bipolar is simply this. I don't have any doctors and all that other things, but a chemical imbalance, mm-hmm, that if we get the right medication, the right treatment, we now can operate at a level that we are very intentional, right, about how we want to live, heal, and move forward.
That's right.
What do you have to say to people who might struggle with that, and how to keep that dream even alive, that there is still hope for a brighter day?
Thank you, babe. So, one of the more common things that, that I see in my day-to-day life, because I work in a hospital, mm-hmm, is we'll take something such as diabetes.
Yes.
Right. And so when we look at diabetes, we understand it from a very basic level, that
yes,
it's the body's inability to be able to produce the insulin that it needs,
yes,
to balance it out.
Yes.
But nobody ever says to you, Johnny, shame on you that your pancreas doesn't produce enough for what it is.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
That's good.
We don't ever turn.
We don't. Right.
We'll say, you know what? Johnny got sugar.
Yeah.
Right. Johnny got sugar. Johnny, you better take your insulin, or you better take your medicine, because if your sugar get out of whack.
Right.
We don't attach shame to it.
Right.
We take the insulin, or we take the metformin, or whatever the prescription it is that the physician gives us, whether it's exercise or change in our diet, right? Mm-hmm. Because we want to live.
Right.
But when it comes to mental health, we still have that stigma attached to shame.
Wow.
And it's almost as if we have put the blame, it's almost like victim blaming.
Yes, right? That's so good.
What if the issue that you are struggling with can be better treated through medication management, right? And it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. Maybe it's genetic.
Yes.
Right? Maybe it could come as a result of a traumatic event, and it's a stressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you may have PTSD. I have clients who have PTSD. And
we're still very much ashamed of that because we don't understand that fully. And it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
In fact, I go here, considering all the hell that many of us have been through, if PTSD is the only diagnosis you have,
yeah,
baby, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's manageable.
But that understanding comes from having understanding.
Mm.
Right. And I think that one of the things that we as mental health providers do, we talk about empowering people. And we empower them through information.
Yes.
Through knowledge.
Yes.
Helping them understand what a diagnosis is.
Yes.
It's not a label.
Thank you. Say that. It's not a label.
It's not a label. Just because you may have depression doesn't mean that you are a depressant.
Come on. Say that again. Right? Yes.
It's no different than being able to categorize, to say, this is what it is that you're dealing with. So let's give you some language.
Right. But
this is how we can address that.
I love that.
These are the methods and the means that we can use to address it. Some people may use medication because their depression may be so severe. Right?
Thank you.
Other people may find that, a regimen of talk therapy.
Yes.
Even a change in their diet.
Yes.
Exercise.
Yes.
Some sunlight.
Yes.
Can make a significant difference. But when we begin to educate ourselves.
Yes.
And this is what I love about being a mental health provider, is that you always give people the information and the option.
There we go. There we go. That's so imperative, because I think that oftentimes we believe that if I have this mental health diagnosis, I no longer have options in life.
That's right.
When it's actually the complete opposite.
Right.
Because now I believe you have more options, because now that I understand the diagnosis, I now can understand why certain things have been happening in my life that I begin to question, that I thought that did not make sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
And now the puzzle pieces are coming together, and I can see my life from a different viewpoint, a different vantage point now. And now that I see it from this vantage point, I have options in how I want to treat it.
I can shift from victim to victor.
Come on.
You know, the old people used to talk about, you know, when you understand the battle.
Yes.
When you understand the battle of the
that's enemy, good.
Right? And so when we talk about mental health issues, sometimes it's a battle of the mind.
Yes.
Right? It's a battle of the mind. It may come about as a result of things that you've gone through in life, things that may have happened to you that were beyond your control, right? Let's go back to 9/11. You didn't necessarily have to be present, but to see, I can remember being in college, waking up and seeing the first plane fly into, right? That vision is still in my mind.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
For some people, it has created secondary trauma or tertiary trauma. Right? The thought of it.
Explain some of that secondary and tertiary trauma, because I don't think we fully understand that, even as it relates to PTSD, of seeing a repetitive image constantly, and how we can disassociate with that.
So something as basic as, it's one thing for a person to be able to experience it firsthand.
Right.
But it's another thing for either somebody to hear it, to see it. As a therapist yourself, think about some of the things that your clients have shared with you.
Right.
Even though you are trained and you have the skill set and you know the interventions and things of that nature, have you found yourself in a space at times thinking about what your clients have shared with you that was traumatic?
Most definitely.
That accounts for secondary.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I don't think that we really take into consideration the impact that really has.
Yes.
You know, I'll tell you as a therapist and I told you last week, I'm a therapist who sees a therapist.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because sitting there and listening to people in their pain and carrying that emotional weight.
Right.
Where can I go and make the deposit?
Right.
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 You know, and you can hear about someone's traumatic, event, and you find yourself being impacted, by that. So trauma doesn't necessarily have to be anything that is directly happening to you.
Right.
It can be the residual effect.
Yes.
Right. And maybe next time we'll talk about big T versus little t.
Yes.
Trauma,
that's
right?
good. That's good. That's good. And so all of this comes out of this discussion of Dr. King and keeping the legacy alive. And I love it because what we're saying here today is that we want to help you bring alive that it's okay that you're stressed sometimes. It's okay that sometimes you feel depression. It's okay that we feel these emotions, that we don't have to detach ourselves from it. And I'm so grateful for, because of Dr. King, we can be in our positions that we are today, and still bring forth the importance and the value of discussing Black mental health and what that looks like in a society today, especially when we are 1% of the clinical professionals.
Oh yeah.
That there are too often professionals who don't look like us.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a lack of
traumatic.
That's traumatic in itself. I'm sure you've experienced it. Lots of people who have changed therapists to you because you can finally relate, or they can finally have someone that relates to their issues and what they may have gone through without spending half of your time putting everything in cultural context so they get a better understanding of it.
Yeah. And one of the things that you said that I want to just kind of highlight is when we talk about stress, right? It's normal in life to be impacted by stress.
Yes.
It's normal in life to go through periods of sadness and depression.
Yes.
The question becomes, when is it an issue?
Yes.
It's an issue when these everyday stressors begin to impact your ability to cope and to deal with your day-to-day.
That's good.
Right?
That's good. That's good.
That might be an indicator that something might be going on.
That's good.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't mean
yes.
that something is wrong with you.
Right.
It's the realization that, you know what, I don't feel like myself. And here's the thing, and especially as Black men.
Yes.
We don't necessarily like going to the doctors.
No, sir.
Right? We don't necessarily like going to the doctors.
No, sir.
But what I have found working in healthcare is that preventative care, which is the maintenance, no different than what you would do for your car.
Yes.
Right? You don't wait till your car throws a rod before you say, "Oh, I got to take the car to the shop," right?
Well, unfortunately, I did one time.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
that's a whole nother story. But anyway, we would not let that happen.
That wasn't a part of the dream.
No, that wasn't a part of the dream.
But had you done some preventative things, and here's the thing: the car gave you some indications.
Yes, it did.
It may have said it's time to change the oil.
Yes, it did.
It may have said maintenance required.
Yes, it did.
Right? But we ignore those things.
Yes.
And our body is the same way. Our body is the same way.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
My wife carried 2 kids, but after she, carried those babies, I felt like I was pregnant, right? And so my back began to tell me, you know what, you're not going to be delivering nothing no time soon.
No,
so
sir.
You might want to go give birth to whatever it is that you was holding in the front, because the back of you, right? And so I had to lose weight.
Right.
I had to lose weight. Within my family, there is diabetes, there is cancer, there are all of these things that run within my family that I have to be aware of, Marty, because I don't want things to get to a point to where I'm not able to do what I want to do because I didn't take the preventative measures.
Yes.
And your mental health has to be the same way. You're the mental health hygienist. When I think about the hygiene, I think about the hygiene. Yeah, when I think that's important.
Very, very much
that's
important.
Really important.
Touch your neighbor and say that's important.
Important.
That's important. That's important.
But you think about going to the dentist, right?
Yes.
And I love my hygienist. There's something about getting a deep clean. Some people don't like it, but I love when they're cleaning because I know that afterwards your teeth are right. But that's preventative maintenance. Why is it that we negotiate with our mental health?
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Right? Why is it that we negotiate
That's
with
good.
mental health?
And a lot of times I think it's because we have not had these same conversations about our mental health because, again, we've pushed it aside. We just said, they a little cray-cray or don't go over them to Ray and them or, be careful, as opposed to saying, Ray and they are going through mental health crises, or they've had a struggle, they've had a problem, and it has impacted them in this way.
What are we pretending not to know that Ray and them went through as to why they're a little cray-cray now?
Well, it's a lot of shame. Yeah. I think it's tied to and attached to shame.
That's right.
Because what goes on in this house stays in this house. And if people really know the truth about us, will they respect us and like us the same? So I much rather they suffer as opposed to expose the truth and get the help so we can prevent this from becoming a generational trauma. And
so is it shame? Or is it manipulation? Or is it a combination of?
I think it's a combination of of all the above. Yes.
It's so interesting because, after my grandparents passed away, I got really curious as to what was it like, for them growing up. And I realized that my grandmother, she left the South.
Yes.
And she never went back.
Yes.
Right. And when I began to investigate, because, the social worker on the inside of me is just like, something's going on with this family system.
Why did she go back?
And what I began to realize in speaking to people who were still alive, there were things that happened in the family that they couldn't talk about.
Unresolved trauma.
And here's the thing, the danger with that, because I've often heard my clients say, I want to make sure that I don't make the same mistakes that my parents made.
Right.
That is an admirable declaration. But what are you doing differently? Are you actually dealing with and addressing the issues that you have?
That's good.
And addressing the source of what those issues are, right? Because all behavior is motivated.
Yes. Say that one more time.
All behavior is motivated. All behavior has a purpose.
Yes, that's good. Yes.
All behavior is motivated to either meet a need, and then I ask, but what is the underlying need that it's trying to meet, right? For example, it was Tony Baloney popped up, and it made me think about, children and how we oftentimes will look at a child and we'll say, oh, that child is bad, or this child's behavior. And what we don't take into consideration is that children don't have agency, meaning they don't have the ability that you and I have to make choices and to make decisions.
Right.
So behavior is the distress language of the child.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So little Johnny is cutting up and he's acting up in school.
Yes.
And all we see is little Johnny is misbehaving, not taking into consideration what might be going on at home behind the scenes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's so important, and Dr. Jackey, I thank you for the conversation about that, because again, you what you've wonderfully done, as you always do, is simplified and made it very clear to us about mental health doesn't have to be so daunting and abstract. Right. And so, and I love it. I love one of my other favorite things to do is not just ask, who are you? But also I love shaking family trees.
Oh yeah. And see what
doing
falls
the genogram
out.
and seeing
what falls out.
Yes. Why do you think for us, it's because part of our history is just telling stories.
That's right.
Why is putting the pieces together in our genograms, or family trees, as we like to call them, so imperative to understanding also possibly genetic challenges that might be in our mental health as well?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I don't want your viewers to, to get upset with me, but I was having a conversation with a colleague, and we were talking about the impact of the Jews going through the Holocaust and what they lost. Right. There was, they lost so many people.
Right.
And I've actually gone to Dachau in Germany and walked around, that place. And I could say as a Black man, I remember standing in the concentration camp and saying, Lord, nothing I'll ever go through in my life will compare to what these people went through. But while these people lost their lives, they were also able to retain their language, their culture, a sense of identity. As Blacks, as African Americans, we lost language. We lost so many things that the mainstream doesn't want to account and acknowledge that we lost. Right. So when we began to do genograms, which is simply shaking the family tree. Right. It is a way to help us identify who we are. Yes. What is within our DNA. Yes. Right. And we hear that word, that acronym DNA, it's deoxynucleic acid, right? It's the fiber of what builds you as an individual, right? You may want to, my dad started to lose his hair, right? At a certain age. I know that you never went through that because you got a full beard. But it wasn't until I went through my family tree and I began to see, you see how I did that? You see that's a therapeutic refrain. You see how you find the strength. I didn't look at the top of your head. I looked at the full face right here. You see that?
Daryl in my ear talking about that is good. That's good. That was good.
You see that?
Yeah, whatever. I'm not even fooling with that.
But here's the funny thing though, is that when I began to go through my family tree and just having a conversation with my dad, I realized that his father lost his hair at a certain age. Yes. Right? Yes. And then we found out that his dad lost his hair. So here it is. Hair loss was something that was genetically based. See, is that Johnny Walker?
That ain't Johnny Walker. That's Jeff.
I'm colorblind. I thought that was Johnny Walker Red on the screen. Okay.
No, that's Jeff Walker.
But it helps us understand who we are. And I think that as Black people, one of the things that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis really is identity. Yes. Who are we?
Well, again, like you said, our identity has been snatched from us. Yeah. And when you separate, and purposely, what I believe was part of the plight in the 60s and 70s to separate Black families and separate families of color.
Public housing.
Yes. And you could not get the housing or even approved for it if the father was in the household. And so it was designed to strip the Black father, strip the Hispanic father, strip the Puerto Rican and all that father out of the home. So then you have a loss of identity. And when people don't know who they are, you can then program them and make them whomever you want them to be.
You know what, Marty? Now you've hit on something, because one of the things that I use as an activity when I'm teaching is that if you ever want to see what the American family has been chronicled and how it's been documented, television. Right?
Yes.
So if you go from like just the 1950s to what the American family looked like up until the 2000s, you think about these shows. I Love Lucy, so
Leave It to Beaver,
right?
My Three Sons,
right? But it's always, for the most part, it's always been a heteronormative Caucasian family, right? When we begin to introduce the communities of color, you look at something like Good Time.
Good Time. Remember we've had Julia.
Yeah, listen,
when she was again a single black mom,
mother, right? So you had Good Times.
Nell Carter.
Yes, Give Me a Break.
Give Me a Break.
Right?
Yes, yes.
So with Good Times, James was there, but they killed him off. Right?
And mind you, he only had a third grade education.
Right? But then we jumped to a few years later, because we all remember the Cosby Show.
Yes.
Right? But it was a representation to kind of break that stereotype that the black family was dysfunctional.
That's good.
Struggling.
That's good.
Right?
Right.
And so here you had a black doctor, a black
lawyer,
attorney, and they had their 5 kids, but they also had multiple generations that were intact, that the children knew, which painted the picture of the reality of many blacks in America at that time. That was the untold story, right? But identity, right? Because we have people who see certain shows. My mother went to Africa, and she said one of the most interesting things that was asked of her in the group that she went with, because they took some teenagers, was that all of the kids in the village that they went to in Ghana wanted to know if the black kids knew Jay-Z, if they knew, these celebrities and so on and so forth. Why? Because of the power of media. Right? This is why representation matters.
Yes.
In so many different areas.
Yes.
I have a sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt says they want our rhythm, but they don't want our blues. And I leave that there, because someone that I love dearly gave me that sweatshirt, and I wore it all day yesterday. Martin Luther King Day. So you want
the rhythm, but you don't want the blues.
That's right.
Yes. And what I love is that our people have come through so much, but we still have so much further to go in truly loving and identifying who we are. So I love it that this is part 2 of Let's Have the Conversation, because we really have had a really impactful conversation about where we've been, where we are,
and where we're going. Yeah.
In that regard. So any last words, Dr. Jackey, before we wrap up today's show?
I want to say that you are really good at always giving someone else their flowers, and I'm going to give you your flowers, and say that I appreciate the fact that you've created and you intentionally create spaces, particularly for people of color, for black men to have a platform, to have a voice. You are living the legacy of what Dr. Martin Luther King intended. You're going back into the village, because oftentimes, there are people who make it, but then there are people who help to create the ways for other people to make it, right? And so you are a Sojourner, you are a Harriet, you are opening the doors to bring those of us who wouldn't necessarily have this opportunity to platforms such as this. And so I want to say thank you, and with gratitude and sincerity. I know that we joke a lot. I love you, and I sincerely thank you for what it is that you've created and what you're creating for, not just Marcel, but for who you are, as a black man. And Johnny Walker Red right there done just gave us something.
and our Mac in the back in my ear something. And Sojourner had hair. What?
Well, she did.
Yes. But my other legacy here is keep popping up her head. But no, Dr. Jackey, I appreciate. Thank you for that, and I appreciate your brilliance, your passion for what we do too. I thank you for your leadership, and what we make sure that we are getting the positive and right messages out there. Because I do believe that we can change a whole not just a generation, but make such a huge impact if we come together and keep shouting from the rooftops. Like Dr. King says, I do have a dream, and my dream is that we would stop and take is Johnny Walker Red for me. Oh, Lord.
Well, it might be the black label, and I'm saved and sanctified. I just know that some of the old preachers used to have to be delivered from the Johnny Walker, and I just added a color to it. But going, because you was deep and you see that? It's okay.
Ooh,
that's all right. Let
hallelujah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
but we really are trying to take this stigma and the shame out of mental health diagnosis. And I love your analogy that we never make people feel ashamed because of diabetes or high blood pressure or anything like that. But when it comes to mental health, oh my God. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. I appreciate you. Listen, I'm just Marty, trying to just get out here and share this amazing message and pour hope into everyone. Do you want to say Happy King Day?
Now, baby, you can't come on stage and not say your Easter piece the way you're supposed to say your Easter piece. We worked on this in the back room. Now, we're going to try this again. You stand on
Come on. See, you're here now.
This what happened when you done grew up in the church. Now, we done been working on your lines in the back room. Now, you going to say Happy King Day.
Happy King Day.
Oh, that's my baby right there. You see that? You know how we do. You got to get a cheering encouragement.
Yes. But listen, we thank you for joining us on this special King edition. And as we continue the important conversation, right. and it's so important that we do embrace the legacy and the life of Dr. King, because again, we would not be where we are today without him selflessly putting his life on the line, not only his life, but his family's life, yes. Because he saw the greater good in mankind. And that's what we want to do here. See the greater good in all of us, saying that there is hope for us and that we have to still keep dreaming. We have to still keep shouting from the rooftops that yes, we can speak up, we can speak out, and we can live. Now, we never want to leave you without any hope and without any resources. So here are some local resources that we want to subscribe to you. If you're going through experiencing any type of crisis, please text crises to 741-741, and you can definitely get confidential help. There's other thank you. Resources that we want you to subscribe to as well. That is Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Men, Good Therapy, Marcel Consulting, and again, for the new mental health helpline, 988. If you're experiencing any type of mental health crisis or need to get some support with what you might be going through on a mental health level. Again, we want you to check out our website. I'm actually going to talk about the website today, Daryl. Please check out our website at mentalhealthmarty.com. for what we have there. We have some amazing support there. Please check out our Stop the Stinking Thinking journal. That is an amazing journal just to help you along the way. And our t-shirts and hoodies, Black Mental Health Matters. We have that in the t-shirt and the hoodies. I have a new t-shirt coming out that's going to be definitely speaking about how to eliminate and stop Black suicide in our communities. But again, we want to thank you for joining us on this week's episode as we continue the conversations, part 2, as we keep the legacy alive in Dr. Martin Luther King. But in this journey called life, we don't want you to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame, but we want you to speak up, speak out, and live. But always remember to enjoy your life. We'll see you next Tuesday. God bless you, and we'll see you then. Take care.
Bye-bye.